Какую самую большую ошибку можно совершить в 20-29 лет? Просто плыть по течению, ожидая, что в твоей жизни все будет происходить само. Ты ошибаешься, если думаешь, что кто-то придет и принесет тебе успешную карьеру и смысл жизни. Добавлю к этому, то, что ты не знаешь, чем ты хочешь заниматься по жизни, не значит, что надо сидеть без дела. Для большинства моих школьных друзей самой большой ошибкой было то, что они стали экспериментировать с таблетками, а потом пересели на гречку. 6 из них с нами уже нет. Остальные либо загубили себе жизнь, либо сейчас борются с зависимостью. Извинено. Такова жизнь в центральном восточном Кентукки. Жить не по средствам. Все хотят жить богатой жизнью, забывая, что только единицы могут ее реально себе позволить. Не воспользоваться своим главным преимуществом – временем. Помню, как я один раз в шутку сказал своему более взрослому другу-миллионеру: «Я бы запросто променял свой возраст на твои деньги». Его ответ навсегда засел в моей голове. Имея твое время, я бы сделал куда больше, чем ты бы сделал с моими деньгами. Я воспринял это не как оскорбление, а как мотивацию, что нужно извлечь максимум из данного мне времени и не просрать его. Я знаю кучу людей, которые сильно проебались, женившись в 20 с копейками. Кстати, я один из них. Сидеть в зоне комфорта. Серьезно, ставьте себя в неудобные ситуации. Сходите на собеседование по работе, которая слишком хороша для вас. Пригласите на свидание девушку, которая слишком хороша для вас. Подайте доки в универ, который слишком хорош для вас. Если худшее, что может произойти, равно тому, что произойдет, если ничего не делать, то стоит хотя бы попытаться. Нарожать детей не от того человека. Да и вообще рожать детей, будучи эмоционально, психически и финансово к этому не готовым. Финансово – важнейший момент. Дети обходятся дорого. Не заниматься физкультурой. Не бросайте это дело. Если есть возможность, ведите активный образ жизни. Иначе с годами вам будет гораздо сложнее начать все заново. Ох, как знакомо. Пока я не приблизился к 30, у меня был просто шикарный метаболизм. Но потом меня повысили, у меня изменился образ жизни, и теперь мне 30 с хером, и мне уже куда сложнее справиться со своим висячим брюхом. К черту все, что было написано до этого. Следите за здоровьем своих зубов. Добавлю, сходи уже наконец к стоматологу. Не делай вид, что ты Том Хэнкс в фильме «Изгой». Ты не на заброшенном острове. Не тратьте время на самокопание. Не тратьте время на негативных людей, отношения, межличностные перепалки. Потратьте его на личное развитие. Прокачайте себя в том, что вам нравится. Дружите с людьми, которые радуют вас. Займитесь чем-нибудь интересным. Еще ни разу не было такого, чтобы человек с упоением вспоминал, как он в молодости 6 месяцев подряд срался со своей соседкой по комнате. Через несколько лет ты не будешь, я надеюсь, сидеть в баре и рассказывать всем, как та сука Шерил в тот раз постирала твои полотенца с отбеливателем. Все это говно не имеет никакого значения. Никто никогда не был в восторге от того, что он 7 лет докапывался до каждой мелочи в своей внешности, не носил то, что хотел, и, соответственно, не наслаждался собой. И я сейчас не про самосовершенствование, я про загоны ради загонов. Хватит изводить себя, с тобой все в порядке. Если в ваших отношениях бывают крики по пьяни, игра в молчанку, какие-то странные уловки, да и вообще, если вы чувствуете постоянную озлобленность, то просто валите из этих отношений. Ваша дружба не будет вечной, вы перерастете своих друзей. Или они вас, это нормально. Тут нет ничьей вины. Возможно, будет больно, поэтому постарайтесь перенести это с достоинством. И всегда думайте, прежде чем что-то сделать. Будьте адвокатом своего же дьявола. Думайте о других. Во время конфликтов научитесь смотреть на себя со стороны. Адекватность – это отчасти приобретенный навык. Научитесь ему. Плыть по течению, упуская свой потенциал. Конечно, легко откладывать дела, пока ты еще учишься и чувствуешь себя самым умным в универе. Но ты не успеешь и глазом моргнуть, как тебе стукнет 29, и ты поймешь, что уже появилась куча знаменитостей моложе тебя, а ты еще даже не понял, с чего тебе начать. Если чувствуешь, что тебе чего-то хочется, то нужно этим заниматься, пока ты еще молод и голоден. Мне раньше часто говорили, что у меня большой потенциал, но потом в один момент я осознал, что упустил его. Если ты ничего не делаешь со своим потенциалом, то толку от него ноль. Пойти в колледж, не имея какого-то плана, либо на неактуальную профессию. Просто потому, что тебе кажется, что так надо, и потому, что так делают все вокруг. Не думайте, что у вас впереди еще куча времени, чтобы начать откладывать деньги на пенсию. Если у вас есть возможность регулярно откладывать какие-то деньги, то за дело. Лучше всего начать откладывать, переходя на новую работу, когда у тебя повышается зарплата. Обозначьте себе какой-то процент от вашего повышения, который сразу будет идти на ваш пенсионный счет. Таким образом, вы никогда не будете забывать откладывать деньги. Потихоньку перестать заниматься спортом. Поверьте, эту привычку куда проще поддерживать, чем начинать все заново в 30 с чем-то. круто. Изменено. Мой коммент не про похудение, он про физкультуру. Поэтому не надо тут разводить базар про урезание калорий. Поверьте, я прошарен в этой теме. Худое тело далеко не единственный показатель здорового тела. Брать кредиты и займы, которые ты не сможешь отдать. Тратить больше денег, чем ты зарабатываешь. Я делал все это. И теперь борюсь с последствием того, что спускал кучу денег, пытаясь быть наравне с чуваками, которые зарабатывали гораздо больше, чем я. Еще 2-3 года, и я раздам все долги. Не навещать родителей и не звоните. Я серьезно. Возможно, это прозвучит странно, но когда мне было за 20, я был так рад съехать от родаков, что даже не заметил, как потерял с ними связь. Жалею, что не успел сделать для них большего. Не использовать ту свободу, которая дается в эти годы. У большинства людей в 20 лет еще нет ни семьи, ни детей. Надо наслаждаться этим временем. Путешествовать, заниматься волонтерством. Разберитесь, кто вы такой и кем хотите стать к концу своего взросления. Пока вы молоды, свободны и полны энергии, не торопитесь брать на себя слишком большую ответственность. Пока есть такая возможность, получайте удовольствие и хватайте эту жизнь за яйца. Во мне нет ни капли энергии. Самый жизненный коммент за весь день. Покупка машины, которую ты еле-еле себе можешь позволить. Многие даже не задумываются, что к крутым тачкам также прилагаются высокие цены на страховку. Видел, как некоторые мои друзья, которым в районе 20, попадали на серьезные бабки. Мой кореш как-то взял себе поддержанную купеху Infiniti G37, просто потому, что она круто смотрится. Потом один раз такой подходит ко мне и спрашивает: слушай, а сколько ты страховки отдаешь? С чего вдруг такой вопрос? И оказалось, что он платит $300 в месяц. Добавляем сюда платежи за саму машину по $350 на протяжении 5 лет. И выходит, что он платил по $700 за тачку, которая стоила порядка 20к. Приезжай к нам в Торонто. Тут за $300 в месяц тебе застрахуют только Короллу 21-летней давности. Пожертвовать образованием ради заработка денег. Не хочу сказать, что все пренепременно должны идти в колледж, но получить какой-то актуальный навык, у которого есть будущее, надо по-любому. Работа официантом, барменом и тому подобное кажется самым простым способом заработать деньжат, но всю жизнь вы так не протянете. Я знаю нескольких официантов за 40, которые выглядят на все 50 и ненавидят свою жизнь. Позаботьтесь о себе. Привычки, выработанные в эти годы, останутся с вами надолго. Печально, что я понял это только в 27 и теперь пытаюсь исправиться. Меньше бухла, больше овощей, меньше углеводов и так далее. А еще не спускайте бабки на всякое бесполезное говно. Если вам вдруг вздумалось купить какую-нибудь хрень, спросите себя, не будет ли эта вещь раздражать меня через пару лет. Если вам вдруг вздумалось купить какую-нибудь хрень, вспоминаются гениальные слова Дуайта Шрута. Когда я собираюсь что-нибудь сделать, я спрашиваю себя: интересно, а какой-нибудь идиот это бы тоже сделал? Если ответ да, то я этого не делаю. Не чистить зубы. После того, как не стало моего отца, я перестал перед сном чистить зубы. В итоге это привело к проблемам с корневыми каналами, удалению зубов и ужасной боли. Моя самооценка упала до нуля. Когда у тебя вырывают зубы, с каждым днем ты начинаешь все реже улыбаться и все больше ненавидеть себя. Ты теряешь больше, чем зубы. Пожалуйста, следите за своими зубками. 20-30 лет – это минное поле, которое во многом определяет твое будущее. Я бы сказал, будьте осторожны с веществами и отношениями. За мои 33 года эти два пункта были самыми калечащими и опасными для жизни. Не пользоваться солнцезащитным кремом. Ребят, серьезно, пользуйтесь кремом от солнца. Один солнечный ожог может увеличить риск меланомы в 3 раза. Я работаю со многими взрослыми хиппи, строителями, ландшафтными дизайнерами и арбористами с раком кожи, которые сейчас очень жалеют, что пренебрегали защитой от солнца. Послушайте База Лурмана, мажьтесь кремом. Если вас беспокоят какие-то химикаты в составе, то всегда можно найти альтернативу. Почитайте про корейские крема. Они приятно ложатся на кожу, не липкие и не содержат вредных химикатов, как американские. Возьмите себе в привычку пользоваться ими каждый день, и в будущем скажете себе спасибо. Париться о чужом мнении. Постоянные пьянки. Можно просрать целые годы жизни, думая, что ты просто тусуешься. Мой хороший друг вот только недавно наконец-то признал, что он алкоголик. Нажираться каждую неделю в говно на протяжении 10 лет – это ненормально. Слушать советы людей с Reddit. Приму это к сведению. Думать, что ты вечный. Чем старше становишься, тем время летит быстрее. Оглянуться не успеешь, как тебе будет уже за 30. Мне 61. Клянусь, еще позавчера мне было 24. После 30 время начинает лететь реально быстро. Не вкладываться в себя. Занимайся спортом, развивай разные навыки, личностные и профессиональные. Не просирай время попусту. Возможно, прозвучит слишком тупо и поэтично, но самая огромная ошибка, которую можно сделать, это делать делать недостаточно ошибок. В 20 лет наступает самое время для проб и ошибок. Только надеюсь, вы отнесетесь к этому со здравым смыслом. Я не имею в виду то, что нужно упарываться веществами и лезть под юбку к девушкам, которые тебя не хотят. Я к тому, что не нужно жить в пузыре из комплексов, ибо потом вы об этом сильно пожалеете. Ввязаться в отношения с человеком, у которого мания контроля. Отсутствие уважения к личному пространству другого человека – это серьезный звоночек. Вы рискуете потерять все свои сбережения, запороть себе кредитную историю, разрушить карьеру, потерять связь с семьей и в конце концов останетесь с одним или даже несколькими незапланированными детьми. Серьезный совет: если вы влюбились в человека с такой проблемой и думаете, что сможете справиться с ней, даже не пытайтесь. Выйти за первого попавшегося чувака, который проявил к тебе интерес, потому что тебе показалось, что это твой единственный шанс. А потом быстро нарожать ему детей, потому что дети укрепляют брак. Нет, нет и нет. Просто нет. Дети — это круто, но только тогда, когда оба родителя принимают полное участие в их жизни. Иногда ребенок может пошатнуть даже самые крепкие отношения. Заплыть жиром. Мне 35, я жирный. Я вызываю у людей отвращение и ненависть. Со мной редко, когда кто-то сидит в автобусе, а даже если и сидит, то все равно чувствуется как человеку мерзко. Я никогда и представить не мог, что так запущу себя. Я жалок. Занимайся собой или однажды окажешься на моем месте. Самая большая моя ошибка – я жил, не имея цели. Хотя тут, наверное, меня поймут люди самых разных возрастов. Что интересно, еще я всегда боялся 30-летия. А сейчас, когда мне уже даже чуть больше, я понимаю, что я проживаю свои лучшие годы. Большое спасибо за просмотр. В комментариях под видео напишите, какую самую большую ошибку можно совершить в 20-29 лет. И не забудьте посмотреть наши другие выпуски. Пока!
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their inn. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.